So this is something called a SeaPerch, and it's actually like a school project that kids would do, experimenting with buoyancy and that sort of thing. Alright, it is Memorial Day weekend on Saturday, and we're out here on the boat, and we got a little bit of wind, not a ton. It's kind of coming in and out. It's up to 10-12 knots when we came out. Now it's died down a bit, so we're just kind of out here drifting along with a little bit of wind. Alright, so we're in the middle of a big wave, a big wake. A boat just came by. So we're moving a lot right now, but I wanted to point out there's another Island Packet, which is our boat, right over that way. And I think that is either the same or smaller. It might be an Island Packet 27, or it could be a newer 32 called the 320. I don't know what it is, but it's an Island Packet. I don't know who it is. I think I've posted on the Facebook page before, and I think they responded once when I posted a picture. But right now, we got the wind. We just got hit by a big wake, and now we're all kind of sideways, so I might have to fire up the motor. Alright, so just fired up the engine again, just to kind of get us a little bit more steerage, because winds were dropped down to like about a knot. And you can kind of see off the back we have the Wilma Lee. And I don't want to drift into that boat, so winds right now are starting to pick up. It's kind of now about 6 knots, so I'm gonna kill the engine here in a second as soon as I get some distance from that boat behind us. Alright, we're now about out into the bay, just about clear of the Severn River, and the winds have kind of been a little bit more steady out here, 6-7 knots, doing about 3 knots over the ground right now, and pretty quiet out here despite the holiday weekend. And it is still a little bit chilly, not super cold, but a little bit. I think it's supposed to be in the 70s, but it's always a little colder out here. So here we are, cruising along. So the weather today, originally when I looked, for some reason on the Weather Channel it said we had a small craft advisory, and it said 15 to 20 knot winds, up to 30 knot gusts, which is pretty far up there. So, but none of the other weather sources that I checked, like Windy and Windy app, had that small craft advisory, and none of them had the winds as that high. It's about right now what I was expecting based on Windy and Windy app. So I don't know why Weather Channel said we had that small craft advisory. It's the only place I saw it, which was weird. But not bad though, right now. So one thing I've been working on with the boat since last year, I replaced the GPS, and I wanted to hook it all up with the radio and with the autopilot. So I was able to get the cable that connects everything together, and then hooked it all up so it's all connected. But last time I turned on the autopilot, because it had been powered off, it needed like reset or something. So I did the dockside things, which set the rudder and all this stuff in the right position. But the other thing that you're supposed to do is do a sea trial of it, where you're drifting or you're making a figure 8 and doing some other things with the boat. And I haven't done that part yet. So I turned it on thinking that I was going to do that today. but everything seems to work, right? I've got it on right now and it's following a course. So we got the GPS right here, and I just noticed that the GPS is actually, I can tell it's sending a signal to the autopilot down here, because my speed up here is showing up on the autopilot down here. So it is communicating, which is good, and the rudder is in the showing in the right position, and it's holding this course. So right now it's telling me that I'm doing 114 degrees magnetic, and I have it set on 113, so it's kind of drifting back and forth. That matches with the compass, which the compass right now is telling me about the same thing, but what's not saying the right thing is the GPS, which I don't know why. It's telling me GPS magnetic is 137, so I don't know if it's an issue with like declination or some other thing like that, or if I need to change the GPS setting so it's the same as everything else. But this says that my speed is, or my direction should be 113 magnetic, which is what the compass, the boat compass, is actually telling it, because it says the RC42, which is the compass that we have on the boat. So maybe it has something to do with having to do the figure 8 thing, or who knows. So I may try to run through that figure 8 if I can get it in the settings in the menu to do the setup. But right now it's on autopilot and it's holding this course at what it thinks is 113 degrees magnetic, which my compass is showing about 115, so that's about right. Only the GPS is way off at 136 magnetic. All right, now it's Sunday, Memorial Day weekend. We went out for sail yesterday, and winds were pretty decent starting out, but then they kind of died down toward the end, so we kind of had to motor back in. But nice day though overall. We were originally planning on trying to do a weekend trip this weekend, since it's Memorial Day weekend and we have the 3-day weekend, but the weather is kind of not cooperating. It's kind of cloudy. It's supposed to rain. Actually, it's supposed to rain today and tomorrow, and I'm not sure if that will materialize or not, but it definitely is cloudy and on the colder or cooler side. So we won't do an overnight trip this weekend, maybe some other time. But for now, today, what I've got planned is a little experiment with a project that I've been working on at school, and then we'll take a look at the outboard harness and see how that turned out. So this is something called a SeaPerch, and it's actually like a school project that kids would do, experimenting with buoyancy and that sort of thing. So as some of you may know, I am a teacher. I teach technology and engineering at the high school level, and this SeaPerch thing is a project that's usually done, I think, at like elementary and middle school. But I have a marine technology class that I teach that is related to boats and things like that, and there were parts for this SeaPerch in my room that have been there for I assume years, and I figured I'd give it a try. But my current class, my marine technology class, is ahead on everything right now. We're getting ready to wrap up the school year, so I figured I would throw this project in at the end. And I had 1 or 2 kids who were ahead, so they've already started on it. And it's really very simple project, but what it's supposed to teach is buoyancy. So the way that it works, you've got some PVC pipe put together here. It's got 3 DC motors on it. So this motor right here is supposed to move it up and down, and these motors in the back move it left or right or forward and back. There's a little remote control here. The remote control is hooked up to this battery, a 12-volt battery, and you move the buttons forward or back, left or right, and you get those motors, and then up and down like that. The motors are regular little DC motors that are stuffed into these 35mm film canisters, and they're stuffed with toilet ring wax to make them waterproof. And then the wires come up through here, and they go through a big long cable down there, and then to the remote, and then from the remote to the battery. And inside the remote is just a simple circuit board that switches the polarity on the motors to make them go up and down and left and right. I went ahead and mounted a GoPro on here, and this is my GoPro. Usually I use this for my channel. Right now I'm using my cell phone, but most of the time I use this GoPro. So I'm going to mount that on there. I'm going to put it in the water and see what that looks like on the bottom of the boat, just for fun. Now the way this works with buoyancy is if you just put this in there without the floats, because there are holes drilled in here that allows water to enter, it would probably sink based on the weight. But you add a little bit of extra flotation to it, and what the goal is to try to get this thing so it's neutrally buoyant, so it doesn't float or sink. It kind of sits at the level, whatever level in the water that you place it. So rather than making it exactly neutrally buoyant, it's better to have it slightly some slight positive buoyancy, so that way if you do lose power, then it will come back up to the surface. But you want to make it as neutral as possible, because the more neutrally buoyant it is, the less energy it takes to make it go up and down. So that means this motor here has to work less, the closer to neutral buoyancy that you are. But I'm going to take this and throw it in the water and try to take a look at the bottom of the boat. I know the bottom of the boat is filthy because the boat's been in the water for a couple years, hasn't been cleaned, and it's supposed to be hauled out later on this summer anyway. So, but I figured just for fun, we'd throw this in the water, and I put my GoPro on there. This is the GoPro that I use for the channel, so hopefully nothing happens to it. It's in the watertight case, so that we'll see. And if this doesn't work, and if I lose my GoPro, then the channel is in trouble. And the water is also pretty cloudy, so I'm not sure how much we'll see anyway, but it's just an experiment. Maybe eventually I can turn this into a boat hull cleaner. We'll see. Here goes nothing. Alright, so it sort of worked. One of the problems that I noticed is I threw this last little bit of foam on here to because it started sinking too much, but this kind of brought the front end up too high, so it was kind of like this in the water, and then the forward thrust then became going up instead of going forward. So but once you kind of turn the down motor on and let it sink a little bit, it would kind of flatten out, and then you could go forward. So overall, they look pretty good. Okay, now for the next experiment. Let's see if this thing can scrub the hull with a brush attached to it. Okay, it was perfectly worthless at that. It just couldn't push enough against the hull to actually do anything. But it did like touch the hull and kind of get a little bit off on the sponge scraper, but that won't work. Fun trying anyway. And as a follow-up to this project, I got the harness made, and I think it turned out pretty good. It's got this strap up at the top here, so you can hook the outboard crane to it to lift it up. I added these straps here so you can tighten it up so it doesn't slide out the bottom. There's one on each side, and then the buckle at the top. So I don't know if it will hold it yet. The webbing is strong enough to lift it, I'm sure, with the weight, but I'm not sure about the how well the stitching will hold up. So we'll try it out, see how it works. Hopefully the outboard doesn't fall into the water. So that's all I've got for this week, I think. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do next week, or what we're going to do, what the weather's going to look like. So we'll see. Maybe another video next week or in 2 weeks. But that's all I got for you. See you later.
Bye.